It's a blowout. 8th inning, 10-3. Bases are loaded for Verlander, who waits out a 3-0 pitch. He swings, and it's a high fly ball. Deep center field. It is gone. Home run. And a huge bat flip to celebrate. All right, Ben, start the show already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Flippin Bats presented by Mattress Firm. I am your host, Ben Verlander. And everyone, we have an absolute legend joining us today. Iván Pudge Rodriguez is joining us in a little while. 14-time All-Star, 13-time Gold Glove winner, which is a record for a catcher. He is a Hall of Famer. He's an MVP. He's a World Series champion. He's done it all, and he's joining us here in a few minutes, and I cannot wait for that. So stick around for that. Off the top, we're going to be rounding the bases with some storylines from around Major League Baseball. We're going to get to This Week in Shohei Ohtani News, my favorite segment. And at the end, I want to go through some of the most underrated players that we saw this year. Top 5 most underrated players in all of Major League Baseball this year. But let's get into it. Rounding the bases off the top. And first up, we got the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals, as I speak right now, are on a 16-game winning streak. 16 games. As of a month ago, it literally seems like a month ago, the Cardinals had no shot at this. They were out of the playoffs. They weren't in the conversation. It was the Padres. It was the Reds. And that was pretty much it, honestly. Those were kind of the teams that we thought were going to make it. The Cardinals have gone off 16 games in a row, which is the longest streak in Major League Baseball this year. The longest streak since 2017 when the Indians did it. And the longest National League winning streak since 1951. So what have they done? They've gone from 500 on August 1st and 7 games out of a playoff spot to, honestly, in the playoffs. I mean, there's no, mathematically, it's not over, but they're 5.5 games up. This is theirs. The Cardinals are making the playoffs after it didn't seem possible. This stretch they are on is unbelievable. Harrison Bader is on another planet. Tyler O'Neill is killing it, and Paul Goldschmidt just continues to be one of the most underrated players in all of baseball. They have 3 guys on their team with over 30 bombs this year. Tyler O'Neill, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. Some of the games on this streak have just felt, I don't know, special. I really don't know another way to put it, to be honest with you. They've been down against the Cubs by 5+ runs, and they come back and win it. They've done that. They've had multiple comebacks in this run. Look, this team, the Cardinals are going to get into the playoffs. They're going to grab a wild card spot. Who wants to play them right now? Nobody wants to play the Cardinals right now. That's how hot they are, which actually leads into our Twitter poll from this week. So if you follow Flippin Bats Pod on Twitter, make sure you're doing that so you can participate in the poll that we do every week. And this week's question was about the St. Louis Cardinals. If the Cardinals make the playoffs, are they the most dangerous team in the National League? 61.3% said no. 38.7% said yes. So the winner of this poll is no, they're not the most dangerous team. I'm going to disagree. Now, my prediction to win the National League is the Milwaukee Brewers. That's who I've picked to win the National League. But who is the most dangerous team? It's the Cardinals. How many times have we seen this with a team get hot, and never this hot, but how many times have we seen this? A team gets hot right at the end, they sneak into a wild card spot, and they just dominate. The Kansas City Royals, when they won the World Series, similar. San Francisco Giants have done it multiple times. Snuck in as a wild card. Next thing you know, World Series champ. The St. Louis Cardinals have done this before. There's something about this, and I've talked about this a few times, and I truly believe this. The team that has the most to play for coming down the stretch, they just continue it into the playoffs. So it is not a foregone conclusion by any means that the Cardinals go up against the Dodgers in game 1, which I'm predicting it's the Dodgers, not the Giants. Dodgers, Cardinals in the wild card game, and the Cardinals win that game. I know how good the Dodgers are, but you do not want to play a team like this. The last thing you want is to just have some time off. The Cardinals, nobody's playing better than them. So right now, are they the most dangerous team to face in the National League? Yes. I truly believe that. So thank you guys for voting in this week's Twitter poll at Flippin Bats Pod on Twitter to participate in the show every week and answer our poll question. So thanks again for voting on that. Next up, heading on over to second base, the San Diego Padres. Man, oh man, what a disappointment. A disappointment doesn't even begin to explain this. It's a fiasco what has gone on in San Diego this year. Just for a reference, everyone has considered the Padres before, within the last month, no longer. But for most of the year, the Padres were considered one of the best teams in baseball, okay? As we sit here right now, the Padres are 78-78. By my math, that's pretty close to a 500 ball club, which is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. This team has a superstar, a 22-year-old superstar, Fernando Tatis, making all the money in the world, who's put together an MVP-type season. I'm not saying he's going to be the MVP. I think that's going to be Bryce Harper. But an MVP-type season, you're paying Manny Machado all the money in the world. You bring in Blake Snell. You bring in Yu Darvish. Like, this team, on paper, is great. To be a 500 ball club, to not even make the playoffs, is a fiasco. An absolute fiasco. So here's my prediction. This team stays basically the same next year. Aside from Jace Tingler, who this is his second year as a manager. He won last year. Last year was a weird year. The Padres were good. They make the playoffs, lose in the playoffs. But he's a winning manager in season 1. Season 2, up for debate. They could be a below 500 team. But one thing I truly believe is Jace Tingler is out after 2 seasons in San Diego, because this is unacceptable. And not all the blame is on him. The pitching coach, Rothschild, got fired about a month or so ago. So some heads are starting to roll, but there's going to be massive turnover, I think, on the front office side and on the coaching side. Jace Tingler's got to go. This team is too talented. When I look at this season, I can point to one time period, and to me, it's the trade deadline. This team was looking great. They were in good position. They were 90-some% chance to make the playoffs, which is done, not making the playoffs. But I look at the trade deadline. I truly do. I look at that trade deadline, and everybody says, what are the Padres going to do? This team is there. This team is ready to win. What are they going to do? Max Scherzer. Can we get Max Scherzer? They don't. They get Adam Frazier. Since the obviously postseason-bound Padres acquired Adam Frazier from the Going Nowhere Pirates on July 26th, the Pirates and Padres are basically the same. They have basically the same record. So they acquire Adam Frazier, who at the time was one of the best hitters in baseball, had the most hits in baseball. To be fair, he hasn't been great with the Padres. But that's not the answer. Adam Frazier was never the answer. What were they going to do at the deadline? Everyone was talking about Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer. Everyone thought they got him. Remember? We thought the Max Scherzer to the Padres deal was done. But it wasn't. They didn't end up getting him. I actually tweeted after that, they have to get a pitcher now. Guaranteed they're getting a pitcher. They didn't. They did nothing. That is a failure. And ever since that trade deadline, it has been downhill, 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 fiasco, missed the playoffs, Tatis, Machado fighting in the dugout, which happens, but a fiasco, an absolute fiasco. The Padres, who roster two of the best players in the game, and Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado, will be on the outside looking in October. Their collapse is, quote, one of the worst in recent Major League memory. 6-15 in September. 6-15. For a roster with all the talent in the world, 6-15 when the games started mattering the most. So when I say this season is a fiasco, it's because I can't think of a description that is acceptable to use, but this is worse than a fiasco. This is a nightmare. And heads are going to roll this offseason. I truly believe that. So like I said, I think the roster is going to stay fairly similar. I think Jace Tingler is out. I think they have some front office shakeups to do as well. But a disappointment from the Padres, but the future is bright, I believe. I truly do. I really like the way this team is set up. I think Tatis is a star for a long, long time to come, and I think the pieces are there. So I think the future is bright. But I just think the people leading the way, that has to change a little bit. But moving on to third base, the Chicago White Sox. Now, here, let me state this about the Chicago White Sox. I have, and my predictions that I came out with about a month ago, the White Sox in the World Series. So let me explain this. The White Sox are coming into the playoffs. They're just rolling it. They're just rolling into the playoffs. Just a nice, leisurely stroll. They're playing an easy division. I get that. The division's been wrapped up before the All-Star break. I get that. But one thing that we seem to forget is how good these guys are. I mean, let's talk about the rotation for one. You have two guys with a sub 2.8 ERA, Carlos Rodon, Lance Lynn. And then you have Lucas Giolito, who didn't have the best first half of the year. His ERA is sitting around 3.5, but he's a great pitcher. How many times have I said this? Pitching wins in the playoffs. These guys have it. They have a rotation. They have a top three dominant rotation. They have Craig Kimbrell and Liam Hendricks at the back end of this bullpen. And then you have the offense, full of star power. Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Yasmani Grandal. It goes on and on. So I feel like the team that I feel like this is a team we should be talking about more as a threat in the playoffs. Because everyone says, they don't play anybody. They when they do, they're not winning games. Look, this team has been one of the best teams in baseball all year. They have a roster built to win in the playoffs. And they've proven they can win big games. Look, I know it was one game. I'm going to point to the Field of Dreams game in Iowa. I know this was one game. But let's not undersell how massive of a game this was. I know it was 1 of 162, but it was more than that. It was bigger. There were more eyes on that regular season game than there have been in over a decade. And they were part of it, playing the New York Yankees on a huge scale. And they went in and played one of the best games that we have seen in a regular season in a long, long time. They belong. Not only do they belong, they are built to win. So do not count the Chicago White Sox out. They're probably going to play the Houston Astros in round one. Do not put it past them to win that series. I have them predicted to win that series. I have them in the World Series. I have a Brewers White Sox World Series because I believe in them. I really do. So don't count this team out just because they're in a bad division. That's my point here. This is a World Series team. It really is. I believe that. But let's head on over to home. Round and third, heading home. We got to talk about it. The AL wildcard race. This is the best thing going in baseball. Best thing going in sports. I'm a little biased. Best thing in sports right now. AL wildcard race. Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays, and the Mariners. Got to talk about them. So wherever we sat a week ago today, we're no longer there, okay? What happened this week? The Yankees and the Red Sox play each other. The Yankees sweep them in Boston at Fenway Park. A sweep to propel them to first in the wild card. So now spot number one in the wild card is held down by the New York Yankees. Spot number 2 is held down by the Red Sox still. And 1 game back, 1 game out of that, is the Toronto Blue Jays. Mariners are a half game behind them. You know, most of this conversation is going to be about those top 3, but you can't have an AL wildcard conversation without the Mariners anymore. I'm tired of saying the Mariners are still there. Don't forget about the Mariners. We're not forgetting about the Mariners. We're not. It's incredible. Run differential, not great. Fun differential, great. In playoff contention, yes. Mitch Haniger, incredible, yes. Watch their games. It's great. But they are in 4th behind these other 3 teams. And it is, they all play each other this week. They all play each other. Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, and Red Sox. The Red Sox actually have the easiest schedule remaining. The Red Sox play the Orioles and the Nationals. The Blue Jays play the Yankees, and then they have an easy final series. I think it's against the Orioles. The Yankees had the toughest remaining schedule here. So, look, I'm going to stick with what I said over a month ago. Yankees, Blue Jays. I said it here on this show. Producer Conrad came out here and said, what's your prediction? And I said, Yankees, Blue Jays. I'm going to stick with it. But this AL wildcard race, tune in every single night because it's getting intense, it's getting fun, it's getting electric. It's the best thing going in sports right now. You heard it here. A little biased? Yes. Wrong? Nope. It really is. It's the best thing going in sports. It is super exciting. And speaking of super excited, I have the chills. Getting ready for this conversation with an absolute legend. I mentioned it off the top, all of his accolades. He's got all the accolades in the world. But one thing that is for certain, this man, Iván Pudge Rodriguez, is a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer on the field, and he's a Hall of Famer off the field. So let's get into the conversation with Iván Pudge Rodriguez. Pudge, thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be with you, and good to be with you.
I appreciate that. So what I wanted to ask you to start off was growing up as a kid in Puerto Rico, I feel like the game at that time wasn't as big. There weren't as many players in the big leagues when you were a kid. So what was the baseball scene like there at the time as a kid when you were growing up?
Well, when I grew up, I started playing baseball at the age of 7. And basically, like what you mentioned, you're right. We didn't have a lot of big leaguers at the time. Obviously, we had Roberto Clemente, which is our hero in Puerto Rico, and he's a hero in baseball in Latin America. And Orlando Cepeda also was part of that group, and a few more. But baseball was kind of big still in Puerto Rico, little leagues and local leagues in Puerto Rico. Into later on, we start to play a lot more baseball and just focus more in the baseball side instead of having the volleyball and basketball, which is, I don't know if you guys know, but Puerto Rico is really big in volleyball and big in basketball. And so a lot of these athletes start to focus a lot in the game of baseball. I was one of the guys that I played multiple sports when I was little. And then I started to focus a lot in the game of baseball, become a professional, and sign at the age of 16.
Wow. So how were you able to watch Major League Baseball as a kid? Was there anyone you liked watching or anyone you grew up idolizing?
Yeah, we had some games in Puerto Rico back in when I was little. We watched a lot of Cincinnati Reds machine game then in Puerto Rico, obviously because even though that Tony Perez is from Cuba,
yeah.
But Tony grew up pretty much in Puerto Rico. He left Cuba at a very early age and established himself in Puerto Rico, and we always said that even though that he's Cuban, for us he's from Puerto Rico, and the reason that we watch a lot of Cincinnati games because him, obviously a lot of San Francisco Giants because Orlando Cepeda, Pittsburgh, the Pirates because obviously Roberto Clemente. I didn't have the chance to to see him
Right.
because he passed away in 1971, and that's the year that I born. But my father, used to see him a lot. But yeah, back in my days when I was playing Little League, I watched a lot of Cincinnati Reds games at home.
So growing up a Reds fan, I assume you were a fan of Johnny Bench. What did that mean to you?
Absolutely.
In 1999, Pudge, you won the American League MVP and became the first catcher since Johnny Bench, 27 years before that, to win an MVP award. What did that mean to you?
Well, it means a lot because, man, he's my favorite player growing up, even though that we are in the Hall of Fame and obviously all the awards that he has also. But he's still my favorite player. And in 91, just be able myself to do that. And he was there also in the ceremony and presented. It was an unbelievable feeling to me. And I remember that I told him, in front of him, you my hero, you my favorite player, even though
That's awesome.
that I'm having a great career and we, I was having some great seasons and basically just tie gold glove with him. I always say, it doesn't matter what happens in my career, but you're going to be my hero for life.
That's awesome, man. One of the coolest things for me is that obviously you got to catch my brother later in your career, but my brother's idol is Nolan Ryan. And your rookie year, you come up as a 19-year-old, and your task at the time is, hey, go catch Nolan Ryan. What is that like as a 19-year-old to have to catch one of the best of all time?
Well, it was a great moment. I catch my second game that I catch in my career was Nolan. My first one was Kevin Brown. My first game that I catch, and I remember when the second day came on, and I went to the ballpark. When I was sitting with Tom Howe, which he was the pitching coach at the time.
Yeah.
And Bobby Valentine, we sit down in Bobby's office and to go through the scouting reports. And I remember that Nolan came in like 5 minutes later and sit down, and I would start to talk to Nolan about how we're gonna work the guys, the whole lineup. And just right out of the gate, the first batter, I was explaining it to him. He just said, "Pudge, stop right there, and we're not gonna go to anything. Forget about the scouting report. The only thing you gotta go is just go behind the plate, and you're just gonna go and you're just gonna put fingers down, and I'm gonna throw it to you." And I was like, okay. And I looked to Tom House, and he looked at me, and he said, "Well, that's what he wants." So when the game started, obviously I was nervous. Obviously catching a Hall of Famer, a guy that can be my father right now. I mean, talking about 19-year-old, Nolan was 46 years old, 45, 46 at the time, and just me be able just to be behind the plate and call my own game and not checking me up much. It was a privilege to me. It was one of my best games that I catch in my career. Just be able to catch him for the first time, and him not checking me out that much, and he ended up winning the ball game, pitched 7 innings, and did a great job with me behind the plate. It was a great moment.
That's so cool. You probably start the game. You're like, I'm going to throw it. He's going to shake me off all game. He's going to be pissed off at me. I can't do anything right.
I know Ben. I know Ben what he throws. Obviously, I'm putting number 1 all the time.
You didn't have to do much.
Maybe 2 or 3. So, the one thing that I know is that Nolan was a almost 87, 88% fastball pitcher. Mm-hmm. And so to me, make my job easier to put number 1. And he loved to pitch inside when he was pitching. So basically the majority of the pitches that I caught was fastball inning to he just changed the sign to a changeup or changed the sign to a breaking ball.
He's clearly, and he's known as a very fiery guy. And you were actually behind the plate for one of the most famous brawls in history when Robin Ventura goes out there. At 21 years old at the time, Pudge, what was going through your mind when Robin Ventura took off for Nolan Ryan on the mound?
Well, I was kind of like in shock that he just did that. Basically, it was expected to happen anyway because Robin did something that makes Nolan Ryan mad. When we play in Chicago, the series before, he slid really hard in second base and hurt one of the guys that we have. And Nolan, I remember that he went up to the stairs and start to just, talking, I don't want to say the words here because it wasn't good ones. But it was waiting to happen, and he knew it. And, that game came out here at the old Arlington Stadium, and the first pitch just kind of like, he threw it, and he missed it, and then he charged to the mound, but he did it. He really did a mistake. He just ran into Nolan's, underarms right here, and he just killed him.
He really did.
It was. I was there. I was right behind him, and it was impressive to watch.
Oh gosh, Pudge. In my opinion, and I don't say this lightly, I truly believe you are the best defensive catcher of all time. And there's a lot of other guys that are in that category, but that's my opinion. And you have the most Gold Gloves to back that up. How important to you was defense growing up, or is that something that you just kind of evolved and said, I want to focus on defense as you got into Major League Baseball?
Well, Ben, to me, defense was my priority in my game. I always put a lot of pride on it, working out, doing the things that I got to do before the game. My preparation before the game was totally to have a great game behind the plate. One of the things that I always tried to focus a lot was, trying to call a great game for my pitchers and have a great relationship with my pitchers. So to me, doing that make my job a lot easier, because when you communicate, when you have that communication with your pitching staff, when you're starting pitchers or the guys in the bullpen, you pretty much know and have an idea what we're going to do. And especially when one of the pitchers want me to throw somebody in second base for an out, I need help from them. So those are the things that the communication is very important. And I did that a lot. The relationship that I have, even though that I play every day, and I have to do a lot of things during the game, but I always take my time just to go and sit down and or before the game and have a conversation with them, because we're kind of like a family. Obviously, all 25 players are families, in the clubhouse or in the baseball season. But the catcher with the pitching staff is a little different, because 11 guys that we need to stay close together and have the same mentality together. So when we go out there, we have an idea what we're going to do.
There's been a record number of no-hitters this year, and you're no stranger to catching those. My brother's first one being one of those. And I always have a soft spot for this, because I actually remember a conversation you had after catching my brother's no-hitter, where you said, I just wanted to get back out there for the ninth. I didn't care about my last at bat. I just wanted to get out there and finish off the no-hitter. Talk about a little more that relationship with a catcher and a pitcher during a no-hitter. There's been a record number this year, and in my opinion, the catchers deserve a lot more credit for some of those than people perceive. So tell the average fan how much the catcher is involved in a no-hitter.
Well, basically, the catcher is involved pretty much in the majority. Obviously, we come to the ballpark early and we study we read some reports and go to the video and write our own report, and then from there we go to the pitching coach, and the pitching coach doing the same work than I do before the game, and then we just put it together to show it to the pitcher when before the game. But when we are in the game and we working in a non-hitter, basically something that you don't pay attention much. We just in the rhythm of, calling great game. The pitcher is throwing good pitches. I call fastballs away, and the pitcher throw fastball right where I wanted, breaking balls in the right spot, things like that. Kind of like, the name said, when you throw a non-hitter, a perfect game is a perfect game. It's just not missing anything.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what I think. I don't talk much when that happens. I leave the pitcher alone the majority of the time, right? And obviously the position players leave the pitcher and myself alone. They don't don't talk to me. They don't talk to the pitcher. When that happens, obviously their job is just to be as ready they can be in any pitch, because obviously the ball can be hit to them at any moment, right? And they got to be ready. But basically, when you start to realize when the pitcher is getting a non-hitter, is probably by the fifth or sixth inning, when the fans start to get excited, and we look at the scoreboard and say, "Oh my God, we are throwing a non-hitter," and that's what things start to get a little more anxious or more tight. And the less that I talk to the pitcher, the better. You can ask Justin when we did the non-hitter. I didn't talk to him much, during the game, because obviously we have such a great rhythm between me and him that basically is no need for me to go and talk to him. You just keep doing what you're doing and make the guys make the play. And obviously when you throw a perfect game, a non-hitter is a lot of great plays happens on the field. And when Justin you throw that perfect game, you can see that game that guys make some great plays in the outfield, diving plays to the left, diving plays to the right, and guys, fly balls deep, make great plays. All those things happen. And when those things happen, that something special is going to happen. And that's what happened that night with your brother.
Yeah. And so the way you got to Detroit, for me, is fascinating. In 2004, you make the decision, after winning a World Series, to, at the time, sign with a franchise that, to be honest, just wasn't very good. And Jim Leland has said before he gives a lot of credit to you for changing the organization around. What went into that decision for you? What made you believe in that decision to go to Detroit?
Because I was having a great belief that the Tigers team is going to be great in a couple of years. During the free agency, Dave Dombrowski also calls Scott Boras, my agent at the time, and say to myself and to Scott in a phone call, and if I signed, he was promising me and the Tigers that we're going to be in the World Series in 2 years. And basically, my God, that's what he did. I was the first one signed. By the way, I'm going back a little bit. When I win in 2003 with the Marlins, that was the same year that the Tigers lost 116 games.
I know.
Okay, I went, and they lost 116.
Oh my God!
During the free agency, when I signed, even my family tell me, "Hey, Iván, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You going to Detroit? I think they lost 116 games." And I say, "Yeah." I'm going to Detroit because that's the team that I like. A young team, good pitching, a pitcher, a pitching staff that they need someone like me behind the plate that they can work with them. Uh, using my experiences as a catcher for 13 years at the time that I have, 14 years, and I think that's what the pitching staff on the Tiger needs at the time. So I got there, and we having an okay season, and then the following year we start to sign guys like Maglio, Placido Polanco. We trade
Carlos
Miguel
Guillen
Cabrera,
came.
we Carlos Guillen, and then we become a team, and nobody can beat us. And then the fans in Detroit, they've always been there. Brand new ballpark, beautiful ballpark to play baseball. Great place to throw strikes because the ballpark is super big, and just make the guy make plays in the outfield.
Well, it literally did not take long. 2006, which was a really cool moment for you. 2 years later, the Tigers win the AL pennant. I have a cool picture I want to show you from 2006, which was a pretty cool night for myself, by the way. But what did that night, winning the AL pennant, what was that night like? What did that mean to you for 2 years later when everybody was telling you you're crazy for signing in Detroit? What are you doing? 2 years later, you won the AL pennant. How awesome was that?
Well, it was awesome. It was awesome, Ben, because that was really a team effort since that year when we started, and a couple of years ago. And I remember then doing the celebration. We was in the clubhouse after we just, been outside with the fans, throwing champagnes to all the fans and all that. And then we came in. And I remember that one of the first guys that came and gave me a hug was Dave Dombrowski. And Dave Dombrowski looked in my eye and said, "Do I tell you in 2 years we're going to be here?" And I say, you damn right, sir. You did it. So no, he said, "Thank you for taking the chance. Thank you for being here and say yes. Then, come with us and sign." And then that was kind of cool from him. A GM come and say that, and not forgetting what he told me in 2 years. And then we just having a great team, and you just got a team that all together, on the road, at home, families. I mean, you there. I mean, you saw the wife and all together. We did so many things together with their families and all the teammates and all that. That's one of the reasons that we win. And a lot of fans doesn't know that part of the behind scene that we have. But families are important for us in our careers, and especially when we winning. Also their families, they're excited and they're celebrating like us. So it was a totally, completely team effort from our coaching staff, players and families and everything from office, that we get it done.
Yeah, and you got to take a picture that night with a 14-year-old Ben Verlander, which I'm sure you're very proud to be able to do. So
I know, and you was really wet doing that picture too.
From the champagne, it got out. It was a night I'll never forget. So a couple career moment sort of questions I want to ask you that I like to ask guests that come on, and the first of them would be, what was your welcome to the big leagues moment that happened to you?
Welcome to the big leagues to me was a 19-year-old kid with a dream, right? With a big dream, and not expecting to be in the lineup, and got into Chicago, and I was there, and I have the chance to tell you that I that I hit my first major league game, and it was a game winner to RBI. To me, that was a great moment. Never forgot that one.
All right, you were a 14-time All-Star, so played in many, many All-Star games. Is there one that stands out as being memorable to you?
Yeah, the one in '95 that we play here in Arlington. Obviously, when you play as a home team player in the All-Star game, is always nice. The standing ovation was unbelievable. It was kind of like more than a minute, and just be able to be part of that ovation. And just took my hat a couple of times to the fans and just play a great game. I threw guys out, including Barry Bonds. He was trying to steal my show in the All-Star game, and I was able to throw him out in second base. It was kind of nice.
You threw a lot of guys out. Is there one guy that was who was the one guy that you just couldn't throw out to save your life and it pissed you off?
A couple of guys, Kenny Lofton and Roberto Alomar. But it's not because there's really smart base runners.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they pick the right counts, big jumps, and it's hard when they get a big jump to throw him out. But for some reason, those two it was nightmares for me.
All right, if you had to pick, what are the top 5 pitchers you've ever caught? Who would they be?
Well, your brother is one for sure. I say Nolan Ryan's 2. I say Kenny Rogers.
Oh wow.
Kevin Brown, and one of my good friends. A lot of people we don't talk about him, but he was a great pitcher. Was Jose Guzman.
Oh wow, I love that list. That's really cool. Really cool to hear you pick my brother as well. Actually, before we hopped on and started recording, you said I needed to tell something to Justin about you wearing glasses now. What was that?
Well, I just wanted to say to your lovely brother, which is my brother too, that I was using this, but I want you to know that when I was catching you, I was wearing this. So this is because I'm going to be turning 50 years old in a month. So that's what happened, and you are going to be the same way coming soon.
All right, so I'm sure you watch a lot of baseball now. I know you're still around the game a little bit. If there was one pitcher from today's game that you could catch, who would it be?
One pitcher right now, wow. I would like to catch Shohei Ohtani. I mean, I just wanted to see how it looks, how his pitches looks from behind the plate. I can see it. I can see from my view as a fan, right, on TV, and what I'm in at the ballpark watching the splits that he throws. To me, that never seen something like that. And in my era, that was one of the primary pitches throws, the split. But this, when you throw a split like that and break almost a foot at 92 mile an hour, wow! I just wanted to see that behind the plate, how that moves.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, and I talk a lot about him on this show. I have my own segment all about him. So talk a little bit about what you see from Shohei Ohtani. You talked about his pitching. To me, his preparation behind the scenes to be able to pitch and hit is the most impressive thing that I've seen in a long time in the game. Talk about what Shohei Ohtani is doing this year and how great this season is.
It's special. To me, it's impressive to see what he's doing. I mean, I don't have an idea, the player that he is, and what they say about him, because last year, a couple of years he's have been doing it, and last year he didn't play much because obviously he didn't pitch because of Tommy John. But now that he's healthy, my God, he just kind of like unbelievable. He just fun to watch. I mean, he just hit another home run yesterday uh, to be right there on top American League in home runs, and just to be able to do that. But pitching, he has a great year in winning and losses record, ERA, strikeouts, all that, and offensively, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hit for high average. You know, close to 100 RBIs. Close to 50 home runs, and he also. We need to talk about his speed as well. I mean,
Yeah.
he is really fast too. The thing is that I think the manager's stopping not to run, but if they give him a green light, it might be 40-40 due to me as well, because he's really, really fast. But it's impressive to see that. It's just impressive to be able to pitch and be the leadoff guy at the same time. It's fun for baseball. It's fun to see that. I hope he can stay healthy for a long time. Obviously, he's a star. He's a superstar for Major League Baseball, and we want him to stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of staying healthy, there's a catcher right now. I had a Royals player on recently, and we talked about Salvador Perez. And he talked about how if he didn't get a little stomach virus that he got earlier in the season, he was going to play 162 games as a catcher. How impressive is that? What has to go on behind the scenes for a catcher to prepare? I've played with so many catchers that couldn't play 4 days a week because they had to ice their entire body. To play 162 is insane.
Well, I don't want to use myself on that, but it reminds me like me when I was playing. I mean, I love to play every day. I always come ready to play every day. I was hating not to be in the lineup, and that's him. And talking about MVP type of numbers, he's one of the guys that, for me, it could be the MVP, and he's been putting some numbers. We're talking about Shohei, we're talking about Guerrero, and some other guys, but when you have that kind of numbers offensively as a catcher, it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not easy to do because you got to do so many other things before the game, like go to the video room and study, like all the things that I just mentioned to you earlier. That offense is the last thing that you do. When you're at the ballpark, and just go out there and hit for average, and over 100 RBIs already. Leading. Just pass Johnny Bench with the most home runs in 1 year by catchers. I mean, you're talking about great numbers. He has some great numbers, and to me, I think Major League Baseball and the media should start talking about him to be an MVP.
I truly agree. And speaking of great numbers, before I let you go, you are one of those with fantastic numbers, and your good friend and former teammate Miguel Cabrera is approaching 3,000 hits. One thing I wanted to ask you, you finished your career 156 hits away from 3,000 as a catcher. That is incredible, insane, any adjective you want to use. Was there any part of you that wanted to hang on to get 156 more hits to reach 3,000?
Ben, I've been asked that question a lot, but hey, the only thing I can tell you, I have a great career, man, and just 21 years of baseball is beautiful. I played with 6 great organizations. They give me all the everything, all the respect that I respect, and me vice versa. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was beautiful to hit 3,000 hit, but I mean, over 2,800 hit, that's a lot of hits anyway.
It's incredible, man.
For a baseball player. But But hey, no regrets. I'm happy. I'm great. I mean, I did everything that I could to win ball games, and basically, the numbers are there. My career is there, and I'm very pleased with the career that I have in the big leagues.
Yeah. Before I let you go, one more thing. If you were commissioner for a day, I asked this question to everybody, so I'm not letting you off the hook here. If you're commissioner for a day, all right, what is one rule that you would take out or implement for the betterment of the game of baseball?
The one rule that I probably take out is the man on second base when we go to extra innings. I think that is. I mean, we all big leaguers, we all Major League Baseball player, and we know what we need to do to score one run. There's no need to put a man on second base.
I love that. Well, you just talked a lot about your career and how it was awesome, man. And I truly mean this. You're a Hall of Famer on the field, and I met you when I was 14 years old. You're a Hall of Famer off the field as well as a person. I truly mean that.
Thank you.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to have you on. If you ever want to come back on, you're always welcome on this show.
I appreciate it, Ben. Thank you for having me. Say hello to your beautiful family, your brother, and God bless you and good luck to you in the show.
I will. Thank you, my friend. All right, I wanted to thank Pudge Rodriguez again for joining me. I had the chills that entire conversation. Hearing him talk about catching Nolan Ryan, being there for the Robin Ventura Nolan Ryan headlock, why he went to Detroit and ended up catching my brother there. Incredible. But one thing that really stuck with me is what he said about one pitcher that he wants to catch in today's game. And it was Shohei Ohtani. Which leads me into my favorite segment this week in Shohei Ohtani news, presented by Mattress Firm. So talk to an expert and unjunk your sleep today. But let's get into it with my favorite segment this week in Shohei Ohtani news. We're going to talk about an underrated part of his game, his speed. We're going to talk about a dominant pitching performance, and we're going to talk about a quote that he had that's going to hold a lot of weight in the Angels' future. Let's get into it. And let's talk about his speed. This past week, he had two RBI triples for the Angels in the same game that now tie him for second in all of baseball in triples. We talk about his pitching a lot. We talk about his hitting a lot. But his speed is so underrated. It really is. We had Joe Musgrove on the show just a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about facing him. And one thing he said that stuck with me is, look, one thing that's not talked about a ton is how fast he is. This guy's huge, and he's like a freight train coming down the line. You don't even hear him, and then he's just there. Shohei's a big human being, but he is so fast. He has 24 stolen bases on the season, tied for the second most triples in all of the league. Look, I've talked about how many times he's getting walked lately. He gets walked a ton. But that's going to cut down soon. One, because he's going to get more protection. But two, just because of how fast he is. All the stolen bases he's getting. Walks are going to turn into doubles for him. They really are. Walks are starting to turn into doubles. Just because he has 24 on the year, he could have way more. He has elite speed. Look at this tweet. Players with 45-plus home runs, 20-plus stolen bases, and 6-plus triples in a season. Shohei Ohtani this year and Willie Mays in 1955. Willie Mays and Shohei Ohtani. That's it. 45-plus homers, 20-plus stolen bases, and 6-plus triples. It's remarkable. But he really is walking at a crazy clip. And I called this, unfortunately, at the All-Star break. I said, I want him to continue and lead the league in homers, but I don't know if he's going to get pitched to enough. And he really hasn't. He's been walking at a crazy level. Check out this tweet. In the last 50 years, the only MLB players with 10-plus walks in a 3-game span are Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper, and Barry Bonds. 10-plus walks in a 3-game span. 10 plus walks in a 3-game span. Nobody is pitching to him at this point. You watch their games, it's just like people are going to watch Shohei, and he's just walking. But yeah, it really is a big part that we're not talking about. Look, when you talk about how many times he's getting on base, how many times he's walking, he's in the same conversation as Barry Bonds. When you talk about how well he's hitting, he's in the same conversation as Babe Ruth. And when you talk about how fast he is, he's in the same conversation as Willie Mays. Every part of his game is elite. Think about if he decided to focus on one single particular thing and do it. He already is one of the best of all time, and this season's incredible. But if people make careers out of stealing bases, and he's doing that as well as anybody. People make careers out of getting on base, and he's walking as much in a span as Barry Bonds. Like, it is incredible. He's also in elite categories when it comes to his pitching, when it comes to how well he's pitching. And he did it all again this past week in a big game for the Seattle Mariners, a big matchup for them. They come out ready to rock and roll. He comes out in what could be his final start of the season. He may end up getting one more, maybe, and it might be on the last day of the year. But this may have been his last start of the year, definitely his last start at home. He threw 7 innings, he struck out 10, and he threw 112 pitches. Career high, 112 pitches. Just another dominant outing against a good baseball team that is honestly all or nothing at this point. But dominant. He has been dominant on the mound this year, and at home, unbeatable. He's almost unbeatable. He's almost unbeatable when he's on the mound, which is crazy to think about. He's had 23 starts this year. 23 starts on the mound. He's lost 2 of them. Think about that. 23 starts on the mound. 2 of them are losses. Remarkable. Honestly, truly incredible. Speed, hitting, walking, pitching. He's doing it all. Another pitching stat. Shohei Ohtani is the first Angels pitcher to reach 150 strikeouts in a season since Andrew Heaney in 2018. He's punching guys out. A big thing for me with him on the mound is he really cut down on the walks. That's been the difference for him on the mound, is he's cut down on the walks. The strikeouts have stayed the same. The splitter is the best pitch we've seen in baseball since he's come into the league. Truly remarkable. Truly remarkable. So in my opinion, honestly, it's not even my opinion. There's a stat we showed previously of all the pitchers that have thrown of all the pitches that have been thrown at least 400 times by everyone that has been in the league since Ohtani joined. His splitter is the best pitch in all of baseball. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. So we've talked about his speed, how many times he's walking, all the stolen bases, his pitching. Look, I said this from the beginning of the year. Shohei Ohtani is the MVP. Shohei Ohtani is the MVP of this league, without a doubt in my mind. But he was already named the MVP of the Angels this year, the team MVP for the Los Angeles Angels, as well as the Nick Adenhart Award winner, which is the pitcher of the year. So for the Angels, he was named the team MVP and the pitcher of the year. This is what and this isn't a brag, we're talking about high school here. This is the award I would get in high school. With best pitcher and hitter. It's a high school, like the best player on the team wins that in high school. People don't do that at the big league level. 22 pitchings. He's 9-2 with a 3.28 ERA, 45 home runs, 24 stolen bases, 75 extra base hits, 96 runs scored, 95 RBIs. He could very well get to 100 RBIs if he has a good last week of the year. Angels team MVP and pitcher of the year. Look, incredible. And they're not winning. They're not winning games. As incredible as this is, the Angels aren't winning. And that's a problem. A problem that Shohei actually spoke up about. Look, I love the Angels. I want to be here. But most importantly, I want to win. Now, he's under contract through 2023. So 2 more years remaining. But his quote, I really like the team. I love the fans and the atmosphere as a team. But more than that, I want to win. That's the biggest thing for me. I'll leave it at that. That's a pretty powerful statement. That's a pretty powerful statement. Mike Trout also spoke up. Joe Madden also spoke up. Trout said, hopefully we go out there and get some big guys. Hopefully we go get some big guys. That's Mike Trout, the best player the game has seen in a long time. Hopefully we go get some big guys. The manager, Joe Madden, this can't continue to go on. The Angels can't afford to wait to win. They can't afford to wait to win. Why? Because you have Mike Trout, you have Shohei Ohtani, who's having arguably the greatest season we've ever seen, who's under contract for 2 more years. You don't have but so much more wiggle room. The Albert Pujols contract, gone, off the books. Make something happen. Go get some pitching. Go get some pitching other than Shohei Ohtani. The offense is there. In my opinion, you have 2 years to figure this out, or you're going to lose a once-in-a-lifetime talent. And you don't want to do that, to say the least. You don't want to do that. But you could lose him. I love that he stepped up here and said, look, above all else, I want to win. I love the fans. I love everything to do with the Angels. I want to stay here. But above that, above all of that, I want to win. And they have next year and the following to figure it out. Because you have this year's MVP. You have a guy that was hurt this year that is an MVP every time he steps on the field. You have those guys. Win while you have them. It's frustrating as a fan of baseball to not see them winning. I'm so happy to see Shohei speaking up and saying, it's time to win. The 3 biggest guys there, Shohei, Mike Trout, Joe Madden, all speaking up saying, it's time. Their GM has said, you know what, we're going to spend some money this offseason. We're going to go get some guys. And that's what they're going to do. Shohei deserves it. Mike Trout deserves it. The Angels fans deserve it. And I can't wait to see what they do. Because Shohei Ohtani is a once-in-a-lifetime talent that is going to be this year's MVP. He is already the Angels team MVP, already the Angels pitcher of the year. Just an incredible season and another incredible week for Shohei Ohtani. And that does it for this week in Shohei Ohtani news. All right, so this is the last episode of the regular season. So what I wanted to do for this segment is name some of the most underrated players that we have seen in all of Major League Baseball this year. So not only the top 5 most underrated players, but I also wanted to talk about some teams that are most likely going to miss the playoffs that I think have a good chance to do so next year. So let me bring out my producer, Conrad, who I'm actually surprised showed up today after I beat him by 13 strokes on golf the other day. But alas, he made it. He is here. So Conrad, come on out, my friend.
All right, Ben, let's get this going. Number 5, Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, Brandon Crawford won the year the Giants have had. Incredible. Nobody saw this coming. Predicted to win 75.5 games. They've won over 100 games. And he's the shortstop of this team. He's hit over 300 on the year with 23 bombs. This is the Brandon Crawford of old when they were winning World Series back in 2012, which cuts deep. That was against my brother's team. But Brandon Crawford is back. He's hit over 300. What a year for him.
Yeah, number 4, friend of the podcast, Kyle Tucker.
Kyle Tucker coming up on 30 bombs this year. Hitting 291. I mean, he's close to 330 bombs.
I mean, you guys talked about this.
Yes.
His off-season workout programs.
We talked about his off-season. We talked about him bulking up. We talked about a lot of the changes he made. And, you know, at the time, he wasn't hitting great. He was starting to hit better. And then, like, to look at his full season numbers at this point, 291, 28 bombs, and he's not even a top 4 or 5 talked about guy on that team. He's really on that team a super underrated guy. So one of the best years and one of the most underrated years in baseball.
Absolutely. And then we have Tyler O'Neill, number 3.
Yeah, I love Tyler O'Neill. He's already over the 30 home run mark. 32 bombs, 281 for the Cardinals, who are the hottest team on the planet, the hottest team on Earth. Like, what what they're doing is special, 16-game win streak, and a lot of it is because of this guy. I feel like in those 16 games, he's hit 16 bombs. I know that's not the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's over 5, which is crazy. So Tyler O'Neill's certainly an underrated season.
Coming in at number 2, we have Cedric Mullins.
30-30.
30-30.
30-30 guy. First Oriole in history to go 30-30. 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, and an average pretty close to 300, 299, by my math, pretty dang close. What a year. This guy's an all-star. The coolest thing to me is that he used to be a switch hitter. And this year he decided to stop doing that and just hit left-handed. And he's had an all-star year, 30-30, first Oriole in history. Truly an incredible year. And the reason he is so underrated is because of the team he's playing on. He's playing on the Orioles who aren't good, so they're not getting talked about much. But what a year.
Yeah, coming in at number 1, we have Austin Riley.
Austin Riley, over 300, 32 bombs, 100 RBIs. When Austin Riley came up as an Atlanta Brave, he set the world on fire. He seemed like an all-star third baseman for the future of the Braves. And then he scuffled there for a little while, but you saw the potential. And man, this was the potential. He's a young guy hitting over 300 at the hot corner, 32 bombs, drove in 100 runs for this Braves team where he's not even talked about much. Look at those numbers, man. Did you know he had those numbers?
I did not. I found out last night.
It's crazy. And we just don't talk about it. So Austin Riley, in my opinion, even more so than Cedric Mullins, who was kind of close, was a toss-up, the most underrated season in baseball. So truly, truly an incredible year. So Brandon Crawford, Kyle Tucker, Tyler O'Neill, Cedric Mullins, Austin Riley. One I wanted to mention before we move on to potential playoff teams next year is Marcus Simeon, who I feel like we know he's having a great year for the Blue Jays, but I don't feel like people know that the year he's having is arguably just as good, if not better, if you look at WAR, better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Marcus Simeon. I mean, 42, 43 bombs. Incredible. And Vladimir Guerrero gets all the talk of the Blue Jays, rightfully so. He's a stud.
Is he back in Toronto next year? He's a free agent. But...
How do you not? They have some money they need to spend elsewhere. It's going to be a tough one, man. They have money. They need to do some stuff with the pitching. But the Marcus Simeon, who is an honorable mention on this list because the year he's having is a top 3 MVP year, so it didn't feel right to put him on the list. But I don't think people knew it's a top 3 MVP year. Neck and neck with Vladimir Guerrero. So wanted to mention him with the other guys. But Conrad, let's talk about some teams that I think are going to miss the playoffs this year, but I think are a team to watch out for next year.
Yeah, let's start that list at number 5, the Detroit Tigers.
You know I love me the Detroit Tigers. I'll always have a soft spot for them. Grew up around them, played for them for 5 years. Some of my really good friends still play for that team, but they are not on this list because of those connections. They're on this list because what A.J. Hinch has done with this team this year, with the roster they have, is remarkable. I mean, it really is. I know that's a big word, but it truly is. And next year, they're going to get guys like Torkelson and Green coming up. The offense is going to come. They're going to add pieces. I can't sit here and tell you right now that the future for the Tigers is next year. Watch out. They're a World Series candidate next year. I don't. But they're a team next year. Look, the second half of this year, they're the best team in that division.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So watch out for the Tigers next year. I truly, they're heading in the right direction, and next year is going to be fun.
And then coming in at number 4, those Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, you're a Mariners fan. An exciting year for you, certainly. We talked a little bit about them at the top of the show when we were talking about the AL wildcard race. They are still in this.
A lot of fun.
They're still in this, which is remarkable. They're a game and a half out as we sit here right now and talk about it. And nobody saw this coming. As a Mariners fan, did you see this coming?
No, I never. This year was a wash year. I thought next year was the year that we had all the young pups come up this year, get a little playing time. Next year we'd be better for it. And this has been a very surprising year.
That's what I thought this year was I don't know if you use the word wash year. Like, I was excited to see. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I was excited to see what guys like Kelenic came up and did, what Gilbert would come up and do, and they've been more than impressive. Kelenic has shown in the last month or so how good he is going to be, I believe. This team is going to be fun for a long time to come. I've been saying it for months on this show. 2025 World Series champions, Seattle Mariners, but I think they can get in next year. They're going to add some pieces, and they're going to be fun.
I just can't wait to watch Julio Rodríguez come up next year.
Another guy, yeah.
And number 3, we have the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah. Now before everybody starts saying they're the same team every year, they're going to look. Shohei Ohtani, my best friend, he's going to be back. Mike Trout, going to be back. Anthony Rendon, going to be back. Justin Upton, we'll see. But the offense is there. You know who's not going to be back? Albert Pujols. And this is a big thing for them because they have money now. They have a lot of money freed up that they can add to pitching. Just throw it all at pitching. Mike Trout is already trying to court Max Scherzer there. I don't know if that's going to happen, but throw all the money at pitching.
I mean, they can't spend any more on hitting.
You can't, and they don't need to. This team is ready. And we just talked about it in the last segment. Shohei has said, I just want to win. I just want to win. And that's kind of eye-opening for a franchise. Look, we could lose this guy. We could lose a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime talent if we don't start winning. So some money's freed up. I think they're going to spend it on pitching, and I think they're going to be a really good team next year.
Yep. Coming at number 2, we have the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, now this one is assuming that they don't somehow overtake the Braves, which is a possibility. They play each other for the division basically this week. But they're behind right now, and my prediction is that they're not going to make the playoffs. But I like the Phillies. I really do like this team, and they're another team. I think you go out and you just spend all the money you have on relief pitching, every single dollar of it. I think the offense is good. I think Bryce Harper is an MVP. I think you have some good top-of-the-line starters. I think you need another couple rotation pieces and some pitching, but this team is really good, and I like them heading into next year.
Coming in number 1, we have the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, fiasco of a year this year, but very good. And I feel like this is different than a few years ago when they spent all that money and then blew it all up after it didn't work. This is different. They got their guy, Fernando Tatis. They got the pieces around him. They have a pitching rotation. I like this team. I think Jace Tingler's gone. I think they bring in a new manager, and I think this team is a force to be reckoned with last year. And I know I predicted that this year. This team's going to be really good. I thought they were. They were up until a certain point, and then it just all blew up, every single bit of it. But I think next year's different. I think they changed some things around, and I think the Padres end up being a playoff team next year. All right, Conrad, thank you for joining me, my friend. This is the last episode of the regular season. It's crazy. The regular season's done last week, last episode. But I do want to talk about our playoff schedule. This next episode we're doing will be a playoff special. We're going to go over the whole bracket. I'm going to give my playoff prediction all the way up to who's going to win the World Series. But we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you heading into October. We're going to be doing a bunch of live shows, live analysis on anything and everything you guys could possibly want. So stay tuned. I am pumped up for October. I hope all of you are, but you're going to get everything you need right here on this show. But before we finish up today, a little extra innings segment. I want to talk about Joe West. I don't want to talk about Joe West, but he's forced us to talk about him. Red Sox and Yankees played this past week. Obviously, we talked about that. We talked about the Yankees sweeping. But Joe West came front and center again. There was a massive, massive, massive missed call. Aaron Judge at the plate, foul ball, foul tip into the catcher's glove, holds on to it for a good while, goes to throw it back. It falls out of his glove. Foul ball, foul ball. Now, that's the wrong call. That's the wrong call. He struck out. He was out. Next pitch or a couple pitches later, 2 RBI double into the gap. changes the course of this AL wildcard race. Now, let me state this. That's a tough call to make. I'm not specifically just talking about this call. I'm just talking about how consistently we find ourselves talking about Joe West. How consistently? When you see a missed call in baseball, you pretty much know who it is. There's two guys, Joe West, Angel Hernandez. What are we going to do about it? Well, one, Joe West is retiring. But two, what are we going to do about it? Umpires are not being held accountable. Something like this legitimately can change the course of the AL wildcard race. They get out of this. They get out of that. Aaron Judge strikes out. Giancarlo Stanton comes up, who then hit a home run. He's walked. He never sees a pitch. So it just becomes tough to watch. I tweeted this right after it happened. I'm sick. This AL wildcard race is the best thing going in sports right now. Leave it to Joe West to screw it all up. But it's not an understatement. It's true. And it's tough to see. We need to do better. We need to hold umpires more accountable. Joe West is retiring. He's not going to be a problem. But it also led to a whole other conversation. That dropped third strike, that held on to third strike. Why can't that be reviewed? You look at the list of things that can be reviewed, that's not on it. You can't review that. Why? What I wanted to talk about is Joe West and the umpire in this past weekend series and how he just is screwing some calls up. And it can't happen. We can't be doing that. It's changing the course of the AL wildcard race. But he is retiring after this year. Good old Country Joe. He's retiring. But that does it for this week in Flippin' Bats. Guys, make sure you're subscribed. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple, rate it 5 stars. Check it out anywhere you listen to your podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. The episode comes out via video every week on YouTube, so check us out there as well. And this is the final episode of the regular season, so that does it for this week's episode, and we will see you next week for a playoff preview episode as we head into October for this episode of Flippin' Bats. See you next time.
It's a blowout, 8th inning, 10-3. Bases are loaded for Verlander, who waits out a 3-0 pitch. He swings, and it's a high fly ball, deep center field. It is!